Chippy, 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 chippy.
I said, I'm going to introduce you to my, I just met my brother, okay, Dennis Nappi. We work together at a cyber school. And I'm going to let him introduce himself and tell a little bit about what we do and his journey and how it ties into future teachers, okay, and give you some insight into how we can help or introduce you to maybe I would say a different way of teaching, right? Okay. Dennis Nappi.
Thank you, Ms. M. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here today. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to all of you. Ms. M asked me this morning to come in and address you and just share a little bit about my experiences. And listen to Ms. M's story, you know, I'd just like to say that you never know what opportunity life is going to present to you. And look at everything that you come into going forward, no matter how difficult it may be, not as a challenge, but as an opportunity. Sometimes the greatest challenges you face could end up being your greatest opportunity, where you can find some of your greatest victories. You may not realize it at the time, but the rewards can really benefit you and those around you later in life. I started off better off reaching kids, through education. Right when I had this thought, I'm on the internet and I see an advertisement for the Philadelphia Teaching Fellows. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of the Teaching Fellows. It's much like Teach for America. Okay, and what they do, they advertise looking for mid-career professionals that want to make a transition to teach in urban education in our high-need schools. So I went in and I applied, and it was a very lengthy application process. And I got accepted as a teaching fellow. So they were going to assign me to one of the schools in the hood, basically, in Philadelphia. And they brought us in for a summer, and they trained us for a month. We go teach in the mornings at summer school. From 7:30 in the morning to 12 in the afternoon, and then from 1 to 5, we'd sit in a basement at Ben Franklin High School down in Center City and sweat. Conditions were tough, but everybody was there because they had their own reasons for wanting to become an educator. So I taught summer school on the 7th floor of Dobbins, which is in North Philly, the heart of North Philly, 2nd or 21st of Lincoln. Bless you. And my kids were challenging. Class would start at 7:30, they'd roll in at 9:30. Some kids wouldn't show up at all. They didn't want to do any work, they just didn't care. My first day of school, because there weren't enough teachers, they crammed 50 kids into one classroom. 2 teachers in there to deal with them. And it's about 100 degrees in that room, and they're expected to learn. So one kid pulls out firecrackers and just starts letting pop, 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 pop. I'm 1 floor up, I think it's gunshots. I go running downstairs, this kid comes running right at me. My first day teaching, I don't want anybody to know I'm a cop. Next thing I know, I got this kid thrown out against the wall. Because I just reacted by my training. I thought he was a threat. I heard what I thought was gunshots. So, that was my introduction into teaching. Southwest Philadelphia. That's when my real education as a teacher started. You can have all the training in the world, and You really got to find yourself through the kids. Get out there. I had no clue what I was doing. I just knew that the classroom I walked into looked like World War III had happened there. There was graffiti all over the walls. People, other teachers just dumped all their old trash in there. There were broken computer parts, desks. I had maybe 2 days to clean this room up, make it look presentable for my kids. So I get in there, and I finally get my students in. That first day, I'm a special education teacher, so I was going to have my 7th grade students all day long. And the first day was great. I walk in, I run things like the military in my classroom. Everybody stand in a straight line, call off their names. If you do it wrong, we're doing it again. I'm going through this whole routine. They're smiling because they're learning stuff. And in a moment of silence, I looked at them. I was like, I thought this was going to be the hardest thing, getting my kids to trust me. And then I thought, now what do I do? What am I going to do now? I had no books. I had no curriculum. I asked my principal, hey, what am I supposed to teach? We don't have a curriculum. Like, yeah, it's not ready. Can I get some books? We don't have books yet. What am I going to do with these kids? So I fell back on what I knew. I just started teaching them. We went over rules. We went over values. I incorporated 4 values into my class: respect, courage, integrity, and duty. And I taught that to my kids, and I made lessons based on that. And I included that in reading assignments and everything that we did, so I figured, let me teach these kids how to be students before I can teach them how to read. After about a week or 2, honeymoon period ended. And then everything really got intense with my kids. They put a student who was an emotional support student in my classroom. And I kid you not when I say this kid wanted to kill me. I've had him and other kids going at me with pencils, trying to stab me. This kid used to call me every racial slur he could think of to insult me, and entice all my students to kind of rise up against me. Very, very violent little kid. When he'd attack me, I'd call for help. Sometimes help would show up an hour later. Sometimes they wouldn't. An incident when a student tried to stab me with a pencil. Help shows up, takes him out of the room. 10 minutes later, he's fine now. They put him back in my room. The kid looks at me and says, I found plans on the internet how to blow up a car. I think the girl would miss you, didn't she? Reported it, nothing happened. I was completely on my own in the street. So, I knew I could either walk out and quit, or I could take my time and try and reach these kids. And that's what I did. And I worked with them. I tried so many different lessons. One that got me through, everybody ever listen to some Tupac, some old Tupac? Keep your head up. Put that song on, kids start bobbing their heads. Next thing I know, that little boy that was super violent, emotionally disturbed, wanted to kill me. I said, who knows what this song is about? He raises his hand, he stands up, and says, well, Tupac's saying that you got to keep your head up. Things are tough. My mom died over the summer. My sister's raising me. Well, I got to keep my head up. I had a breakthrough with that kid. And I realized that these kids, when you walk in, may seem like monsters. But they're children that have been through a very difficult life. And nobody cares about them. That's where I found my passion. I need to be that one that cares. When something happened in my classroom, I knew I wasn't going to get help out there, so I handled it in my classroom. If I had to discipline a kid, even though I had to restrain a kid or drop a kid, because it happened. Then after they were calm, I'd sit them down, I'd talk to their parents and say, hey, here's exactly what happened. I'd write it down legally so I could cover myself, But I would tell them the truth. Hey, here's what your kid did, here's what I did, And we talked. I said, why did you do that? Why did you handle it that way? And they'd start telling me, it was always because, I had a bad day this morning at home. I didn't get breakfast today. Somebody called me this name. I'm tired of being picked on, And then you get some deeper stories, My brother was locked up. My sister got shot. My mom was drunk last night and her boyfriend pulled a gun on us. We had to go running out of the house. These are stories I'm hearing from 10, 11, 12-year-old kids. I was amazed. I was like, wow, I never even heard this from grown men. Some of these stories that these kids go through. So I realized that what was most important to me was not teaching kids how to read and to write, which is also a very important skill, but I needed to let them heal first. I needed to let them know, hey, there's a safe space here, and you need to learn how to be a positive member of society. And that was my main focus. And that first year, because I was so inexperienced as a teacher, I look back and say, wow, there's so much more I could have done with them. But that's what education is about. You know, you're learning every year. They say it takes 5 years to be comfortable in front of a classroom. And that's about what it took me. Every year I thought, oh, I'm comfortable, I'm good. And then the following year, I would start off my year, and I look back and I go, whoa, I didn't know anything last year. You know, and I'm still continuing to grow. But over the last 2 years, we've had millions of dollars cut from our budget. The state is not paying for education anymore. People don't want to pay to educate our kids in public school. And that makes me very sad, because on days where I can't get paper, and I have to find alternate means to teach my kids because I don't have supplies, what investment is that making for our future? I can't express that enough. We're spending more money on prisons than they are on education right now. And when I talk to people about this, it's something I'm very passionate about, because what's our future being set up for? We're not educating our kids anymore. We're so focused on, can they pass a standardized test? You're going to take a special education kid in 11th grade that's got a 6th grade reading level. We're going to teach him at the 6th to 7th grade reading level all year, because we want him to grow, to show that growth. But then at the end of the year, he's got to pass an 11th grade test. It doesn't make any sense. These kids are set up for failure. So I would do what I had to do to keep my job, but I would employ my own tactics. Just about every lesson, one of my kids would have a fit or go into a crisis, boom, lesson stops, let's go into life skills lesson. Whatever that problem may be, kid comes at me yelling, okay, let's step back for a minute. Why don't you talk to me a little bit calmer, because I'm not the one causing you that pain. And the whole class would then chime in, and we talk about that kid's problem, bring it out. So when I had a whole year's worth of stuff to get through according to my curriculum, most years I got through 2 semesters worth as opposed to 4, because those other things were more important. And you know what? As I taught that to my kids, I found that their standardized test scores all went up. My kids, by the end of the year, were telling me, I want to go to college, Mr. Nappi. I'm going to go to a trade school. I'm going to learn something. Because I just was real. I just told them. I would talk to them about how the state and the school is cutting money. We're not supposed to talk to the kids about not having money. Why? It affects them. You know? So I was that teacher that let my kids know. Why? Because my kids are the future. And there's this whole thing going on where they don't want to educate them anymore. So we need young teachers who are in it for the right reasons and not for that check, who care and are going to do what's right in here. You have to understand what's right in here. Do what you got to do to keep your job, but take those opportunities when that door is closed to have those conversations with your kids. And tell them, hey, it's a tough world out there. And my job as an educator is to make sure that those kids walk out of there not as somebody that can read and write well. That would be great. But as somebody that I know, I want to count on. If I see them on the street, they're not going to rob me, because they think now. They know better. They have a problem. They're going to say, you know what? I can't read, but I'm going to go on YouTube and I'm going to look up a video to watch, as opposed to just the mindless stuff that they're doing all the time. I empowered my kids to empower themselves. And that's so important right now. Okay? Unfortunately, again, as educators, you're going to face a lot of challenges, and a lot of them don't even come from your kids. They're created from the top down. Okay? Again, I was a special education teacher. I don't care what, the kids are going to tell me as far as I'm not doing this. As a staff, we care. And we're going to take that care. And we're going to find a way for us to organize and to reach those kids. Because that is where change is going to come from. It's not going to come from a politician. It's not going to come from some wonderful new policy. It's going to come from in here. You got to realize we need to reach these kids, and we need to reach them right now. And if we do, if we find a way to make that change right now as educators and address these needs, instead of saying, oh, he needs to go to that special school, he needs to go get locked up one day, we can change that mindset. I promise you, we can change the world. That change has to be on an individual level as an educator. What am I going to tell my kids? What am I going to talk about? Teach them what they need to know academically, but make that time. And understand that kids today have such greater needs. And if we don't address those needs, what may seem as an urban problem right now, I promise you is going to spill out from those other neighborhoods. And it's not going to be much longer before that happens. This is the front lines. We don't need more police officers. We don't need more prison. We need more teachers that care. We need more teachers that are willing to say, hey boss, this policy's not working. We're going to stand together as a union and demand that this is the change that goes forward. Because it's what's best for our kids. That's our job as being an advocate. Like I said, I've stood on the line in front of my bosses many times. I've been transferred, I've been discriminated against, I've been harassed. You know, they used to put violent kids in my classroom just to try to run me out. Again, I don't say that to scare you. Find your comfort level. Find what works for you and do it. You don't have to be the one standing up screaming at the boss. If you have that one conversation with that kid who pissed you off that day, once he sees that teacher compose themselves after I cussed them out and threw an eraser at them, and they talked to me, they told me that they care, and they've done that the last 3 times I've snapped, I'm not going to scare them away. Next thing you know, that kid opens up to you, and you just changed one life. That kid, my hope, is will go out and change another life. Make that caring contagious. Don't fall into the norm, because they're gonna test your push your buttons, test your emotions. So please, think about that. Understand why it is you're getting into education. I hope my story didn't scare you. I'm a worst case scenario. Like I said, when I see trouble, I tend to jump into it. Your journey will be different. But I want you to understand, you may face some challenges. Handle it the way that you feel is the right way to handle it. You don't have to handle it my way. So thank you. I know I spoke a lot today.
No, that's fine, but you know, I'm so happy.